Because when you microdose, it's like climbing a ladder. So you can safely stop microdosing at any point in time if you decide that it isn't for you. But whatever steps you've taken, whatever gains you've gotten, you stay on that point in the ladder. You don't fall back off. So to me, it's like a beautiful, sustainable option to feel better, to feel happier in your body. And I love it too because I'm all about sustainability. And like you don't have to microdose for the rest of your life. And like, but it's this really beautiful thing that can actually change your life and make things stick.
Welcome, Badass Manifester. I am so glad you are here. I'm your host and head coach, Ashley Gordon, master mindset and manifestation biz expert, founder of the Quantum Coaching Certification, and multiple six-figure entrepreneur obsessed with empowering you to create quantum leaps in your energy, your life, and your business. This is the show to help you make magic your everyday normal, where the ripple effect is real and the guest experts are world class. My mission is to power your conscious and subconscious mind with manifestation teachings, business tools, and coaching techniques to put your potential into action. Consider this your weekly up level. Are you ready for quantum transformation? Let's do this. Welcome back to the Badass Manifester podcast. We have a juicy episode today because I have a juicy guest for you today. I've never used that word to describe a guest before, but I feel like you're really juicy.
Thank you.
I just love you. So Juicy Julie, just kidding. That's not her name. Her name is Julie. Julie is a former lawyer turned success coach and officially a microdosing maven. So that's just a little hint about what we're getting into today. Microdosing. So she teaches the protocol of microdosing and helps people rediscover their most authentic selves, live unapologetically, and break through plateaus and cycles of anxiety and depression. Then comes the process of rewiring and new supportive beliefs and behaviors with staying power. A real science nerd, Julie is. She's obsessed with how and the why of microdosing process, which we're going to learn about today. And she's a firm believer, as are members of her community, that most people would benefit from the process of an intentional, guided microdosing transformation. So I have actually had a lot of questions recently in my world about microdosing, and I have a lot of questions for Julie as well. So welcome back. You guys have heard her before. Welcome back to the show.
Thank you so much for having me again, Mama Ash.
Julie is literally the one person who started that. Like, I don't even know when you started calling me Mama Ash, but long before.
It was MMIM.
Wow.
Yeah.
Which is a mastermind that I used to host that Julie was part of. And then she joined QCA and all the things. And so we'll talk about all of that, but I want you to just pop on and share a little bit about, I have so many questions about microdosing, number one, but let's get to the basics of it. Can you answer some of the basics and how you kind of came into this new course that you're on right now?
Yes, definitely. Okay, let's break down the basics. So microdosing in general can mean a lot of things. Like you can microdose THC, you could microdose LSD. I facilitate and am a mentor for microdosing psilocybin or magic mushrooms. What microdosing means is taking a very small amount, a trace amount, not enough to have any noticeable effect on your sight, auditory things. Some people like report a slight, calmness throughout their body, but it's much less noticeable than like having a glass of wine or, smoking some marijuana. And it's doing that in order to promote the positive effects in your brain and in your body in order to facilitate change. Yeah, is that a good basic definition? Are there anything that's popping up for you?
That's definitely a good basic. I was just talking to someone in my life I was asking her how she felt, because she asked me about microdosing just yesterday. And I was asking her how she felt on it and how she didn't tell me how much she took. But she said that she felt like actually like very happy and fun. And I was like, okay, cool.
Yeah, so I will say most people do notice a slight uptick in energy, but again, less than like having a cup of coffee. And then slight uptick in mood is a really popular reported change. And the best way to describe it is like people will say, instead of getting upset when I get cut off in traffic, people think, oh, that person must really need to get wherever they're going. Like things just kind of roll off your back in a really positive way that allows you to be more present in the moment and not get so caught up in kind of like the monkey mind BS of life.
Cool. So with microdosing psilocybin, how does one ingest that? Because I think like the girl I was talking to yesterday said that she had it in like a chocolate form. And I thought that was more of like a full dose of mushrooms, but I didn't know you can microdose with chocolate.
So I personally, here's what I'm going to say. And I think this is kind of unfortunate because most people kind of end up winging doses, right? Like the it can come in very pre-measured capsules. So you know that you're getting exactly a microdose, which would be between zero point 0.1 and zero point 0.3 grams. So it's pre-measured, or it can come in like little gummies, right? Like an edible gummy that's pre-measured in that space. I personally don't know of chocolates that come pre-measured in that space. So what a lot of people do is they take like a macro dose of a chocolate and they cut it up and they kind of wing
Right.
it and say like, oh, this must be a micro dose. Or they take like an actual mushroom, like, oh, okay, well, this I'm assuming is a microdose. And there's no right or no wrong. Like, I truly don't believe in right or wrongs or should nots. But what happens then is like you can't necessarily control for how you feel because I know a lot of people who have thought they were taking like a microdose and they're thinking, oh no, like
This is a
something is
full,
happening.
yeah,
Because
yeah.
when you truly microdose with a protocol that's regulated and pre-measured, you are safe to drive, you are safe to go about your day, you're safe to have interactions and feel like in control of your own body.
Okay. So, um, what makes you so passionate about microdosing?
So I had really felt like I was hitting a plateau in my personal and spiritual growth and development, and I was kind of looking for the next thing that could break me through my glass ceiling of the level I was currently at. I'm a bit of a personal psychonaut, right? Like I've had my own adventures with these things. But again, when you go on, like I've sat with ayahuasca, and that's like an experience, right? That's
Yeah.
not like something you can incorporate in your day-to-day life. Someone gave me How to Change Your Mind, this beautiful book by Michael Pollan that I would suggest everyone go read.
I just started watching the series on Netflix.
Yay. Okay, cool. Synchronicities.
So good.
I started doing research, really, because I love science. Like that was my background before I became a lawyer, before I became a coach. And I was researching it. I was like, okay, I'm going to try this for myself. Right. So I got a microdosing protocol and I began not just taking the protocol, but doing the work along with it. Right. Doing the best of my first few years in this spiritual and coaching practice on myself and I realized, wow, like I'm seeing real changes in how I feel and who I am. And so I took everything that I did, made it a course, and I just was kind of like, you know what, I'm gonna take people through a beta round. Like maybe this will be something, maybe it won't, but people are interested, so like let's do it. And the funny thing is, was I wasn't trying to make it part of my business. I was just sharing about it on Instagram because I'm an open person. And then people like, I want to do it. So we went through the beta round and like I said this yesterday on my stories, but the amount of screenshots I have from like Voxer notifications, Instagram messages, like Voxer messages that I've transcribed, like the results people get blow my freaking mind. And I was like, okay, now everyone needs this. Let's go.
What are some of the results that people are getting? Like, what are the changes that happen when you commit to a consistent microdosing practice? Because they also want you to decipher between like microdosing once versus microdosing on a protocol.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So to answer the first part, what are people experiencing? I mean, I think the most like liberating things that are coming to mind is one woman came to me stuck in 10 years of clinical depression and anxiety. And she's like, I finally see the light at the end of the tunnel. I know that when I'm having a bad day, it's not forever. And like, I really am finally seeing what it's like to not live feeling so like trapped in depression. and
Wow.
everything that comes with that. So she like wouldn't clean her house, she wouldn't take care of herself. So being able to do those small things, being able to like meal prep and like make herself feel good, like in how she presents in the world, like really getting ready and feeling nice. Um, one woman said that she had always like fought nasty with her husband when they would get into a disagreement, like name calling and just ineffective habits of communication.
Yeah.
And she was like, you know what? This time I came to the table, I used I statements, I let it all out, and like I took ownership for how I felt. He took ownership for how he felt, and we moved forward in a healthy way. Like really breaking habits that have lasted persistently, breaking out of beliefs of like not enoughness, but in more like practical sense, like presence, right? And presence is so key. We're gonna get into the science of like presence equals happiness, and so
Yeah.
feeling good, improved sleep, improved mood, um people just saying like I never knew life could feel like this, like I never knew I could look outside and just appreciate this tree and feel so freaking happy and grateful to be alive.
Pretty big deal.
Pretty big deal, pretty big deal. Wait, what was, oh, okay, so microdosing, like one-offs versus a protocol.
Yeah.
So again, I'm not a believer in right or wrong or should or shouldn't, but what I know is that when you follow a protocol, and a protocol means like a guided schedule for microdosing, and you do it consistently over a period of time, is that that's when you are able to maximize all the changes we're going to talk about that happen in your brain. And doing it a one off can be beautiful, and you probably will have a great day that day. But it's kind of like meditating once and being like, oh, this is a nice feeling, versus committing to a meditation practice and like 30 days later thinking, wow, my life is different.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good analogy for it. Perfect. So what is happening in the brain? Like what is the science of the microdosing? Because obviously I know from my own experiences of doing full-blown mushroom ceremonies, the power of the mushrooms and how healing the medicine is, and how impactful it's been in my life, and how just enlightening it's been for me personally. And so, going from taking, 2 grams in a ceremony to 0.1 to 2 grams like daily, I would imagine. Um, what does that do? Like, obviously, I'm hearing the results, but like, what is it doing in the brain? Is it rewiring neural pathways?
So I'm gonna break down just like the three most important things, because we could really get into the science and it can be kind of hard without people seeing our little pictures that I go through when I give presentations and trainings. But yes, so like to start with, yes, it increases entropy in the brain, which means chaos, which means we have new neural connections, right? Like things are popping off in new ways, and new paths are being formed, but it also increases neuroplasticity. So when you think about entropy, it's the new connections, and neuroplasticity is like the new connections are sticking, right? Not only are there new pathways, but those connections have been like formed, like the road is complete. Um, and because most people who come to this work have anxiety, depression, OCD, or some form of addiction, what those people experiences are really deep ridges in their brain, meaning like, so as someone who used to really experience a lot of anxiety and depression, I would have like the same unsupportive freaking thought that would just pop into my head time and time again, all the time. And that was because my ridges were really deep and like solid. So what microdosing does is it kind of like erases the ridges and allows your brain to pop up with a new connection. So instead of thinking like I am not enough, it can be like I am worthy, whole, and complete as I am in this moment, always. And then those connections stick with the neuroplasticity. But what's also really cool is that microdosing and psychedelics in general quiet down the default mode network in your brain. And that's like a series of interconnected structures. And that is where your brain goes to ruminate on the past, to catastrophize about the future, to speculate about people's intentions, basically to play victim. So when your DMN quiets down, they call it the default because people go there automatically, and they spend on average, a Harvard research study says 48% of their day in the DMN. So when that whoosh quiets down, then you're able to like be in the present. And happiness researchers also say like happiness isn't how much money you have, what weight you are, whether or not you're in like a fulfilling relationship with someone else. It is how present are you.
Mm,
So when you can be present and you can really be happy, and your default mode network isn't taking you into victim mode, like your life changes.
Wow, you explained that so well.
Oh, thank you.
That is so interesting. So is it so people, okay, technical question. Like people that might be on depression medication, are they able to microdose on that medication, or is that something that they need to get off of in order to microdose?
I don't facilitate with people who are on antidepressants because there can be contraindications. And, you know, I have this analogy. So I have been on Prozac before. And the thing that's, scary about an antidepressant is you can't just stop taking it. So please, if you're listening to this and you want to microdose, please don't just suddenly stop taking your antidepressants. Like talk to your doctor and titrate off safely. Um, but also when you stop taking an antidepressant, you just lose whatever benefit it was giving you, right? Like it falls off. Whereas when you microdose, it's like climbing a ladder. So you can safely stop microdosing at any point in time if you decide that it isn't for you. But whatever steps you've taken, whatever gains you've gotten, you stay on that point in the ladder. You don't fall back off. So to me, it's like a beautiful, sustainable option to feel better, to feel happier in your body. And I love it too because I'm all about sustainability. And like you don't have to microdose for the rest of your life, and, like, really you shouldn't. You might, like,
Yeah.
it's not the goal. Um, but it's this really beautiful thing that can actually change your life and make things stick.
Wow, that's awesome. I'm glad that I asked that because I know people are probably wondering, like that are listening, that are dealing with depression and anxiety, like how they can, you know, get on board with it. And I guess it sounds like definitely talk to your doctor about that for sure.
And I will say, like, maybe you have a super cool doctor, and this isn't, like, to persuade you to titrate off of it, but, like, there isn't money to be made in microdosing from, like, big pharma, right? Like, no one's making any money from from microdosing. Because, it's a
It's
it it's
healing.
it's healing, yeah.
It actually
You
wants to heal you and not keep you sick.
exactly, thank you, that's exactly what I wanted to say. So, if you wanna get off and, like, that's an option, I would lead with that conversation, like, "Hey, I just no longer feel aligned with this, and I don't wanna take it anymore," versus, like, if you're like, "I wanna go microdose," they're probably gonna tell you not
They're
to.
probably going to talk you out of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And even before you make that decision, if you're listening to this now, like, you know, I don't, I'm not like, I'm like, don't let this influence your decisions. But
Yeah, I'm in no way advocating for you to do anything
yeah,
at
we're not
all.
advocating for you to do anything, period. The end. We're just informing you on different options that are available.
Yes.
So, what do you think is like, who is someone who is kind of like at that point where, because I'm already thinking like postpartum, I feel like microdosing would be amazing, but I don't know if we could breastfeed and microdose at the same time. Probably not. I have to look
Well,
into
the thing about, unfortunately, like, pregnant women and women post-pregnancy who are still breastfeeding is, like, they don't do a lot of research studies on them, so there isn't a lot of research out there to support it either way. What I think is cool, though, is, like, traditional, indigenous tribes, like, that's where we got this medicine. They've been the first ones to use it for centuries, maybe thousands of years, and they will sit in ceremony, like, up to 7 months, and, like, they will partake in these things,
that.
and really what microdosing and psychedelics in general are doing are spurring new neural connections, and so I always wonder, like, what would that do? Like, would it make your baby so much smarter? I don't know.
I know. I think about that too. I was just gonna say, like, I mean, it sounds like it would be really helpful for new moms that could potentially go into postpartum depression. You know?
Yeah, I mean, there's just so much going on for a new mom hormonally and neurotransmitterly that I
Yeah.
can only imagine that it would be supportive. But again, I'm not
Yeah.
advocating for anything. And then unfortunately, there just isn't the research out there. And I'm the research queen. And I'm sure I would have found
Yeah.
it if there was. But
So can we just break down for a second? Because I know there's people listening that are like, they're talking about drugs, they're talking about mushrooms. These are drugs. And I know that I've referred to them as medicine, and you've just talked about the indigenous cultures who've been using them for thousands of years. So can we just break that down a bit?
girl, this is such a passionate topic for me. And it really like it definitely triggers a nerve for me when people are like, these are drugs. So mushrooms are a beautiful, like, they're not a plant, but they grow naturally, right? In the world, and particularly in Mexico, Central America. That's the first cultures that really utilize this medicine. And so when white people found them in the early 1900s, this medicine was actually used to cure people, to heal people. The first clinical research back in like the 1940s and 50s was using psychedelics to help people overcome addiction. And the best treatment centers like Betty Ford, they were using psychedelics to heal people because they are healing. And then they got tied up with like the counterculture, the hippie movement, with for good reason, right? Because like it opened your consciousness and it made people start to question the government and its motives. But then the government and the establishment demonized these things like Reagan and the war on drugs. Like these things are not drugs. There's a very popular reel on my Instagram. People can go check out and look at this chart. But toxicity of psychedelics and cannabis compared to alcohol, compared to obviously heroin, but compared to nicotine, like Advil even, is so, so low. Like it is not bad for you. It is not harmful. I'm such an advocate for this. And actually, psychedelics are the one thing that are absolutely not habit forming. Like rats will go back to nicotine, they'll go back to cocaine, they'll go back to heroin,
Caffeine.
caffeine, but rats will not go back to LSD or psilocybin. And you lose the effect of psychedelics over time, right? Like, so you have to take breaks in between protocols or you don't continue to gain the benefits, because you can't just take it every day and think it's going to like keep working. It's so not a drug.
Yeah, I'm with you 100%. And when you have a ceremony, like, of course, in college, I took mushrooms and it was like, yeah, let's take some mushrooms in Amsterdam and like, hang out. But this is, the way that I use it as an adult, it's super intentional. It's ceremonial. It's
Yeah.
treating it with respect and it will treat you with respect. And like really having reverence for it as a medicine, I think changes your whole experience of it. So I would say like, don't judge it if you don't really know it, you know?
Yeah. And I mean, it's scheduled by the DEA, but like, how many things has like the government told us were bad for us, right? That like,
Yeah.
I just be in the questioning, be in curiosity, like instead
Yeah.
of making snap
Curiosity.
judgments, like, let's just ask more questions.
Yeah. I mean, the first episode of that show, Change Your Mind on Netflix, the book that Julie was talking about, he talks about, you know, what you just said about how LSD was being used for extensive research to help people with addiction. And they said that it was the future of psychology. It was the future of psychotherapy. And then they shut it down. The government shut it down. And he goes into more of that history if you're curious about that, because that's a very real thing that happened. So, there's things that we're programmed to believe are wrong and bad for us. And we're programmed by the media and the government. So just be mindful of like what you're consuming. And like you said, be curious about your beliefs.
Yeah. It's not so scary, right? And I am such like a do no harm, leave places and people better than I found them. I would never advocate for something that was gonna like hurt you or be bad for you. And I know that you have the same level of integrity with like the the things you facilitate, and you know, it's a beautiful
Yeah.
process.
Yeah, it really is. So what else do people need to know about microdosing that are curious about it as they're listening? They're like, I wonder if this is for me. Like, you know, what do they need to know?
So I think one thing I want to lead with is there are really a few things that microdosing just isn't supportive for with. I had a friend reach out to me, a beautiful soul who experiences schizophrenia. And if you are already experiencing schizophrenia, maybe you have a family history of schizophrenia or some form of psychosis, microdosing really isn't for you because it increases entropy. And if you are experiencing those things, you already have like too much entropy in your brain going on. Um, like I will say he decided to go through the program itself without the microdosing and had amazing results and transformations. And some people do go through it without the microdosing and still like really get a lot of the benefits because the work is the work. But so that's a great sort of very clear area of a no-go. But I also want to say we've been talking about like anxiety and depression, and those are big reasons why a lot of people come to this work. But you can also come to it because it increases your creativity, right? So maybe you're looking for a new edge in business, and you're kind of like, I'm wondering what's out there for me, or I I want to problem solve in a creative way. Microdosing and psychedelics change the way we approach problems in our life and open us up to more possibilities. So it's not just coming to this work because you're sad or you're feeling overwhelmed. It can also be because you want to see like what untapped potential you have that like you're not playing with yet.
I love that. I mean, that's essentially what you were saying in the beginning about you. Like, yes, you've come from a background of anxiety and depression, but the reason you wanted to do microdosing was because you felt like you were almost plateauing and you wanted to step into like a greater level of spirituality. Look at your cat. Oh,
Here we go.
it's your new microphone, the tail.
Exactly.
Yeah. So that's beautiful that you said that too, because I think that it's there's something there for someone who feels good in their life that wants more.
Exactly.
Cool. So
We can
love
always feel juicier.
what?
We can always feel juicier.
Yeah, right. So I told you this was a juicy episode. So if you want to feel juicier in your life, so let's just switch gears for a second on
Yeah.
to um you as a business that's evolved into offering this, because like you said, you're offering a program now that's about microdosing. It's a protocol, it's a transformational program, obviously, that you created. And it's just interesting how it came through as like, this is just something you're passionate about sharing, which doesn't surprise me at all. Like, that's why people were attracted to it.
Yeah, I mean, I've had a lot of evolutions in business. I was actually thinking about this yesterday because I was listening to your podcast, this podcast. um, but I've been listening to your podcast for 4 years, and you were my first podcast
Oh
that
my
I listened
God.
to in this realm. I was a longtime listener before I jumped right into QCA, your coaching certification program. And I just knew that I wanted to be a coach. I totally stopped being a lawyer and I was like, okay, we're going to do this coaching thing. So I was in the first round, I got certified. And I really started off in this like, well, I mean, I had so many evolutions. When I first started QCA, I was like really into this witch mode. And then I was really into like, oh, I'm underutilizing like my legal background. And I was going to do this like more like executive coaching. And to be fair, like my one-on-one coaching, I still more work with like execs or entrepreneurs. I work with a lot of restaurateurs right now in a one-on-one space. So I didn't like abandon that, but it was hard for me to take like this practical success coaching and make it into an offering that could support more people. Because what's great about one-to-one is it is a really high touch point transformational space, but you can't one-to-one with everyone, right?
Right.
And I wanted more people to have access to the work. And I guess that was my intention overall, but I didn't know it would be through microdosing. And it just sort of happened that way, that like this is the best way, the most supportive way for me to be of service in the world and reach the most people, because this is such like a great place to start.
I love that. I think well, first of all, it's really great to share about your own evolution as a business, because I think that people that just start coaching, especially that come into QCA, they think they have to have it all figured out right away. And it's rarely ever the case. People come in with no niche, no clue what they want to do. Like you were an attorney and you're like, now I'm a coach. Like this is what my path is. And so, yeah, it's totally normal to not know, and to not know for a long time even what it's going to be, and to try different things and explore your options, right? To see what you like, what you don't like. And so I love that you created a program about this specifically, because to me, when I think about mushrooms now and being in a ceremony, like every ceremony I've been in has been facilitated, right? I'm not just doing it on my own, not, you know what I mean? And if I ever decided to microdose, I wouldn't just do it on my own. I would want to be guided through it, because I'm sure there's things that come up along the way. So share a little bit about your journey in creating a program alongside of microdosing. Like, how did you put that together?
Yeah, so
Because it's one thing to just give a protocol, and it's another thing to like have a transformational program alongside of the protocol.
yes, I totally like 100%. And what's awesome about Uncover Your Magic, that is my guided microdosing transformational program, is that I teach you right at the beginning, like how to follow this protocol and how to microdose, but there is this whole other program. And it really is the best and the most effective resources that I've found in my first few years of personal development and spirituality. It's a lot of tools that I gained and learned in QCA and molded to fit this program. And one thing that I think we've touched on a few times, but I would really love to dig in on is the power of intention. What I'm hearing you say is like you're not doing this willy. Oh gosh, did I start again?
Just say you're not.
Okay. Um, you're not doing this willy-nilly. You are really choosing a path and setting up the stage. And what I love about the power of intention is that intention allows you to be on a path toward a goal versus just like living in the ether, which no right, no wrong, no good nor bad. But when you have a path and you have a destination, you can course correct if you find yourself getting off of that path. And being in that space of intention is something that goes throughout the entire program, because every single day we set intentions with our microdosing program. Because what I've learned through ceremonies of my own is like you don't go in it just, you
Willy
know,
nilly.
willy-nilly. You go in it thinking like I'm open obviously to the divine, God, however you connect. And my intention here is to experience joy, to experience love, to heal. And when you go into something with an intention, my clients, microdosing and not, have found that it's really shaped their lives. And they realize how powerful they are as creators when they set an intention and they get exactly what they need in that moment. And what I liked what you said about it is you've gone into ceremonies. And the thing that I impress upon people in the program is life is a ceremony. I
Yeah.
want you to go about every single day of microdosing as a ceremony, as being in gratitude and connection and reverence for life, for your life, for others' lives, for life around you. That's really where life starts to be beautiful and magical. And then in terms of like the resources, it was really cool. It was really intuitively led though, how I shaped the program. Like we start off with setting your overall intention, which is, something I've done in every single program I've been in with you. And is really so important is to, again, set the intention so you know what road you're going down. And then, there's a whole module on connecting with nature, because that is a beautiful part of the microdosing process as a gift from nature. But by the end, we go through a really cool process that I learned in QCA that helps you bust out of your deepest limiting belief and really step
Mhm.
into feelings of enoughness and worthiness. So it's been a beautiful ride and evolution, but I couldn't have done it without the tools that I learned in QCA to shape this program.
I'm so impressed by how you put this together. Like, it is true, like what we teach in QCA, you can like literally mold to any program that you ever create, including a microdosing program, which I think is a beautiful model of that. And I'm just really impressed with how you help. Like, it's really just such a beautiful process. Like, you're helping people go through a transformation, and you're also guiding them through this like process, this intention setting process every single day, and helping them understand that life is a ceremony. Every time I'm out of a ceremony, I'm like, life is a ceremony. Like, every single time. It's so true. But like, getting into that habit is one of the most powerful things ever.
It 100% is, because it changes like the lens through which you view the world. And what I believe is so important about being guided and intentional throughout the microdosing process is it's kind of like you can go to the gym every single day, but if you eat McDonald's right after you go to the gym, like your body isn't going to change, right? Like you're not going to really see changes. And if you microdose every single day, that's cool and things are happening in your brain. But coming back to that piece of neuroplasticity, like making things stick, things aren't going to stick in your brain if you're not doing the inner work. Like microdosing is
Yeah.
not a silver bullet. It is the work that you do with it that allows for those changes to happen.
Wow. Okay, that is it right there. It's the work that you do with it that allows those changes to happen. It's
Yeah.
not just taking it because, oh, this is going to make me feel better and this is going to make my life better, because you have to do the work tandemly to make that happen.
Yeah, I mean, it probably won't make your day better, but it won't make your life better unless you do if you work, do the work.
Wow. So good. So, so, so good. So, okay. So let's just say that someone is, you know, ready to step into this. Is this something that's like an evergreen process? Like, or do you launch in cohorts like certain times of year?
I did that in the beginning just to kind of see what was up. But yeah, now I have two really clear paths that I love. So on the one hand, you can get just the guide, which teaches you exactly how to microdose, and it has all the inner work. You go through the modules. You can come back to it time and time again as you go through different protocols. But I also have a community where you can join for a year. And on Wednesdays, we have live coaching. So you can ask questions about microdosing, or I can support you. Because here's the thing, you start microdosing, and then you realize, oh, a lot of emotions are coming up for me and I don't
Yeah.
necessarily know what to do with them because it is an emotional release process. So people come on Wednesdays, I coach them, and then once a month I facilitate transformational breath work, which I freaking love. And that was actually created in response to um, criminalization of psychedelics. So they work really closely and they in your brain as well. So I facilitate breath work once a month live in the
Love
group.
that.
But every day in the group, people drop their intentions when it's their on day and they ask questions, and it's really cool and collaborative.
How long is a protocol for microdosing?
I facilitate Stamets protocol. So if you watch How to Change Your Mind, you'll see Paul Stamets. He has a really cool story about microdose or about mushrooms, and he's like the father of mushrooms, psychedelic and not in the United States. But that's 30 days. So it is 3 on days, 2 off days. And then you do that for 30 days for a total of 18 on days. And then you have to take at least a 2 week break so that your brain can kind of reset and you can continue to maximize the impact of the psilocybin.
Wow. Yeah. If you're curious, like if you want to go deeper, definitely read that book, How to Change Your Mind, or watch the show on Netflix. The show is really good. I love that it opens up with this girl that's like the shaman, like she's not a shaman, but she's facilitating hape, which is another medicine. But anyway, that was really a good way to open it. Anyway, that was so interesting. Okay, this is so good. I feel like people are loving this because I think that it's definitely a hotter topic than ever before. Why do you think that is?
So Paul Stamets has this really cool theory. He literally believes like the mushrooms guided him to be this advocate, right? Like that there's some so mushrooms, a mushroom is the greatest thing on the planet Earth, right? It's like the largest thing. There's this huge 2 mile big mushroom up in Washington in a forest, right? And mushrooms have almost like this their own intelligence, like, they have, mycelial networks underneath them, like, they are intelligent beings. I don't wanna say
Yeah.
sentient maybe, but, like, something's
Well,
happening there.
did you watch the movie? What's that movie? The other movie about
Fantastic fungi.
fantastic fungi. It was so good. I was like,
Yes,
wow, mushrooms are amazing. Like, yeah, people are obsessed with mushrooms.
and I really believe, like, there's a one side of me that's obviously very practical, and I used to be a lawyer and all these things, and there's another side of me that's really, like, spiritual and tapped in, and I truly believe we're at a time of transformation. We're at a time of elevation in human consciousness, like, it's our time to rise, and mushrooms facilitate that greater expansion of human consciousness and oneness, and I feel like there's something else there that's, like, where it's happening together.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like they're a portal,
Yes.
definitely a portal of expansion into just like, yeah, like once you see what's out there in the mushrooms, like once you see what the mushrooms show you, it's very hard to go back.
Yeah, and I think people like the world just feels like a dumpster fire lately, right? Like literally fires, like Yosemite is burning, like our greatest trees are burning right now. And we're all just looking for like, there's got to be something freaking else than this, or right? Like
Yeah, like this is wild.
this is not working. And there's so much like hate and discord. And what I love about mushrooms and psychedelics is I truly love my neighbor, and I don't care if we don't have the same political beliefs. I don't care if we don't we don't view each other the same way. Like, I can show you love. I can genuinely love you because I recognize you as part of myself and a reflection of oneness. And that, like, to me is the most healing energy on the planet. And I think mushrooms are like, damn, these people are really messing it up. Let's try to fix it a little bit. And like mushrooms are becoming more and more decriminalized, which is so cool. All over the United States, already in Canada, like it's happening. It's a
It
movement.
is happening. It is a movement. I was talking to my friend who is a facilitator of mushrooms, and she's amazing. She comes from a MD background. So she was an ER doctor, she still is. And she also facilitates mushroom ceremonies. And so we were talking about just having this conversation about love and hate. And she was just like, yeah, like whatever is not love is hate.
Yeah.
And I was like, really? Like, she's like, yeah, like, what do you think it means when you just like don't like someone, or when you like feel this certain way about someone, or when you judge someone? Like, ultimately, it comes down to love and hate.
I really like the way Marianne Williams describes it as well. It's like it's love or it's fear. But like fear and hate to me are like the same thing, right? Like we either are in ultimate ceremony with the divine, which to me is love, or we're not. Like, and I
Yeah,
don't really believe in such a black or white world, but to me that one feels
that
pretty
one
like
is,
clear.
yeah, yeah. That really like stopped me in my tracks. I was like, wow, so interesting. So I feel like, in a way, all this hate, all this fear is purging itself. And we don't know how to navigate that as a humanity at all.
No, it's a lot, right? And what's so interesting is we get so caught up in this like 3D trap and we think we are this body and like we have to go to this commute and work in this cubicle and blah blah blah. But like you are you are a reflection of the divine. Like you are literally created in the image of God. Like you are an infinite being having a temporary human experience. And sometimes we forget that. And this journey of life is remembering it.
Amen. Amen. Well, on that note, that was perfect. So, for anyone listening who is ready to kind of step into this or curious about it, what do they do?
Well, connect with me on Instagram at Julie Savone. I'm sure it'll be in the show notes. But you can tell me whenever this episode is coming out. And for that week, I will make the coupon code Mama Ash. And if you want to jump into either journey, you can do so at a discount. So
Awesome.
I'll get that ready and going. But in my bio, who knows, maybe at that point I'll have another free training going on where I really dive into this. You can watch the replay of one of my trainings of where I explain all about microdosing and this process. But if you have questions, like DM me. This is my favorite thing to talk about. And I would love to speak with you and just really ensure that whatever you choose, it's the right fit for you because I love imparting knowledge and having people feel empowered in their decision either way.
Awesome. This has been so great. So, so great. Thank you so much. Um, I know I asked you this before, but what makes you a badass manifester?
Ooh, I liked my answer before, but I'm gonna go with a new one right now. Um, to all my little baby perfectionists out there thinking you got to do something the right way, the best thing I ever did for myself was to realize there is no right way and to stop putting so much pressure on like my rituals or my meditation or anything else and to just be intuitively led to whatever feels good in the moment that work and to know that whatever you're doing is enough. Your desires are already in your field. They're just waiting for you to like loosen up the reins a little bit and lean into the joy and pleasure of life.
So beautiful. Amazing. Okay, we'll put Julie's information in the show notes so that you can connect with her, and definitely let us know, how you like this episode, what resonated with you, and share this with someone who you think could benefit. So definitely share the love.
Thank you, Mom Ash. This was so fun.
So fun. All right, everyone, have a beautiful day, and we'll talk to you soon. Woo! We did some work today. Thank you so much for listening. You know I love my BAM fam. If this episode resonated with you, please share it with someone who you know would love it too, because we live for the ripple effect over here. And how can you best support the show? Make sure you're subscribed, hit the 5 stars, and leave a review on iTunes, and let me know how the podcast has impacted you. I love being part of your real-time journey, so screenshot the episode and tag me and my guests on Instagram at Manifest with Ash. Now say it with me. I am my own power source. I am the master of my own energy, and I deserve everything that I desire. We don't just talk about it over here, we be about it. Now go get 'em.